Hello and welcome back to Code Harvest. In this video we are going to be addressing and fixing a small semantics bug that we have made in our slider or slideshow in our eLife product page, and probably you may have or may have not noticed. So for example, when we click on next, everything works as expected. The counter, which is last element, increments by 1 when the next button is clicked, and when the previous button is clicked, the last element decrements by 1. So as you can see, when we click on next, the last element increments by 1, and when we click on previous, the last element decrements by 1. And also when we're at the first range of product cards, so when we're at the first range of product cards and when we click on the previous button, it should take us to the last range of product cards. So as you can see here, it takes us to the last range of product cards because there's no other element before the first element, which is at position 0. So it takes us here to the last element of the product section array. And when we click on next, there's nothing after the last element of the product sections array. So it takes us to the first range of product cards, which is all to be expected. Now the thing is, we have used the same counter, last element, we've used the same counter for all other product sections. So when we click on next, it also assumes that all of the other product sections have also incremented by 1, even though that is not the case. And also when we decrement by 1, it assumes that all of the other product sections have also decremented by 1. So we have created our counter up above over here, and we set it to the number of product cards that are being displayed minus 1, because counting in a computer starts from 0. So at the moment, the current last element, we're at the first round of product cards. So at the moment, the last element is position 3, because we start from 0, then 1, 2, and 3. So when we click on next, the last element now is position 4. Now because the computer or the program assumes that all of the other product sections have also incremented by 1, when we click on the next button again on a different product section, we are going to see two new product cards being displayed rather than one new product card being displayed, because at the moment the last element value is position 4. So now we should see two elements, position 4 and product 4 and product 5. So when we click on next, we see product 4 and product 5. So at the moment the last element counts, so the counter is at 5, or the last element value is 5. When we click on a different product section and when we click on next, it assumes that the last element is currently at 5 already, even though it's at the moment for this particular section it's position 3. So when we click on next, we should see 3 new product cards, but we don't want it to be like this. And also same thing here, we should see 4 new product cards. So this is not good practice, this is not efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an array where each product section has its own counter, and the last element value is incremented or decremented based on the section it is on. So right now we are at the product cards display. So this is the section that includes displaying using the product sections, calling out the product sections. So the product sections array, which carry all of these product cards, and basically we go through all of the product cards in a loop, and we add the active class to only the first range of product cards, because this only applies to when a user first enters a site or first loads into a website or into the web page. They see the first range of product cards. Without this loop, then we wouldn't see any product cards at all. So this is a very vital function. So in this product section, we're going to be creating an array, but we're going to be creating the array outside the loop. Alright, so now we're going to be creating a new array, and we're going to name this section last element, and we're going to be creating an empty array because we're going to be adding the values inside this product section loop, in this for each loop. Alright, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to call out the array inside the for each loop. So this for each loop basically goes through each section from 0 in order, from 0 to, in our case, 5, because we have 6 product sections in total. So it goes from product section 0 to 5. So it goes through all of the sections in order. So now because of this, we can, instead of creating a different loop or a new loop outside the function, we can create this inside the loop. And now inside this bracket, we're going to be including the variable section, which we have already created up above here. So section is basically the value that the array is currently processing. So for example, maybe well, it starts with all electronics, so the first section that it processes is all electronics. So it decides what product cards are going to be displayed, decides what product cards are going to have the active class, and the amount of spacing that it should have next to it, so that the product cards, so the product section can look clean. So now we're going to be defining the last element of this particular section, and we're going to be setting this to this counter, which we have called last element. Alright, so the last element in this screen size is position number 3, because we start from 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So at the moment it's position number 3, because this function over here that we have created only applies to when a web page is first loaded, and when a user first enters the web page, they should see the first range of product cards. So the last element, whenever the web page first loads, should be position number 3 in this screen size. But in different screen sizes, it may be position 2, it may be position 1, or it may be position 6, 7, 8, whatever the case is. Alright, so specifically we don't want the whole section, because this is basically, the section including the headings, the buttons, the product cards. We just want the section's ID, which contains its name. So for example, we have created the IDs to be basically it will be named product section and then the name of that section. So for example, for all electronics it will be product section all. For headphones it will be product section headphones, and etc. for all other sections. So when we scroll back up here and when we check our console log, just to make sure that all of the elements have been included in this array, and its value, in which its value for now should be the same. When we check our console log by clicking on inspect element, we can see, we're going to click on console, and when we load our page, so now as you can see, the screen size is different. So the last element currently is position 2. So now you can see that all of these sections last element value is position 2. Now at normal screen size it's going to be position 3. So you can see also that the section's ID name is always product section and then the name of that particular section. So now let's load our page once again, and we're going to remove this now that we are sure that the array has contained all of the elements as well as all of the sections as well as its values. We're going to scroll down to our slideshow function. So this applies to when a slideshow button is clicked. So you can see we have inside our event listener. Now the counter obviously applies to all product sections. So when a product section has incremented, the product section last element is incremented by 1, all other product sections are also going to be incremented by 1, but that's not efficient and that's not correct. So right now we're going to specify what last elements, the section that we're going to specify the particular section's last element. So we're going to change this value. So right now, as you can see here, we have the slideshow section. So this should return the name of the section that it is currently on. So for example, all, or headphones, or mobile, or laptop, or iPad, or tablet, etc. So right now we're going to call out our array, which we have called section last element, and then we're going to call out the particular section that we want. And so when a user clicks on the button, the section is also taken into account, so we get to know from which section the button was clicked from. So now we're going to type in the name. Now the name of each section in our array is called product section, and then the name of that particular section. So we're going to use these special apostrophes, and we're going to type in product section, and then the name of that section varies. So we're going to use this $sign and 2 curly brackets, and then inside we can add in the actual value, the actual variable and we're going to include the slideshow section. Alright, just to show you what the product, this value should return, let me first select this and I'll show you what it should return in the console log. It should return product section, and if we are clicking on all, it should return all, product section all. So let's just check our console log and let's reload our screen because we're using a different screen size. So when we click on next, you get to see product section all, and it's because we've clicked the button from this particular section. When we click on something from the the button from the headphone section, we should see product section headphones. When we click on something from, for example, tablet, we should see product section tablet. Okay, so now we know that the value that we want to get is formatted. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to replace every instance that has last element, and we want to change it to this variable right here. However, we cannot copy and paste this whole variable, because it's very long. So we're going to create a new variable and we're going to call it current section, and then we're going to replace the text or the syntax inside this array, and we're going to replace it with the current section variable. So now we are able to copy and paste this to all instances with the name last element, so that the section's product cards only update based on the current section, based on that specific section that has been clicked, and not other, and should not affect other sections. Okay, but actually we only need the syntax text, so let's get rid of the array. So now when we reload our page, or when our page is reloaded, and when we click on next, we get to see the next element, and when we click on the previous button, we get to see the previous button. Now, does this affect the last element of other product sections? Let's see. And no, it doesn't, because the product cards were in, the last element was incremented by 1 only. Otherwise, it could have been incremented by 5 or 6 product cards like before. So, but now in other product sections, we're able to go front and go back without affecting the position, the counter of the other product sections.